She was like, you got to sell it to Pierce, though. And I was like, okay. So she walked me back to Pierce's dressing room, and he's sitting there, and like I have to pitch him on what we're gonna do. There is no one around. There is nobody here. It is me fighting for my life for this scene for a commercial that I didn't write.
How did you get into this situation?
I don't know.
Welcome to episode 4 of How They Filmed That, where we break down movies, TV shows, and commercials with the people who are actually there making it, telling the real, true BTS the secrets of what happened on set and how they created these incredible filmmaking masterpieces. Last episode, we had Oren Sofer tell us how he filmed a Hollywood blockbuster on the Sony FX3 and how that changed everything. Today, we have one of my filmmaking idols who I've been looking up to since the beginning, one of the best commercial directors I know, Ryan Booth. He told me about the process of making one of the most successful commercials of the year for the NBA Finals and how he deals with the crazy pressures of working with some of the most famous people on earth. All right, welcome to a little bit of a different episode of How They Filmed That.
This is a slightly different episode, yeah?
We were gonna do it in the hotel room and the lighting just wasn't, Ryan was like, I can't do this. This is not how I work.
Yeah.
I got a spot.
I can't put my name on this.
Now, there's a lot of New York, we're in New York City.
Yes.
There's a lot of New York sounds, so bear with us.
Yeah.
Ryan is one of those guys that when I started filmmaking, I looked up to you and still look up to you, but you were one of those like gods of filmmaking where I was just like,
God.
if only someday I could be as good as Ryan. And now you're here in New York shooting some of the biggest commercials of the year, including the NBA Finals.
Yes, exactly.
What did you guys call it?
The title of the commercial is "We're All in the Finals," but it was the big kind of promo campaign for the NBA Finals this year, which was quite the adventure for sure.
And it was a big commercial.
It was a huge commercial.
I saw it everywhere.
Yeah, it was definitely like of my career the biggest ad buy. So meaning like they bought the most airtime for this spot of anything that I've made.
Yeah.
There was at one point, I remember I was walking down the street in my neighborhood, and I passed kind of my local corner pub or whatever, and it was playing on 2 screens, and then I crossed the street, and on the other side was a sandwich shop, and it was playing a different version of the commercials playing on that screen.
Amazing.
And so it was definitely it was everywhere for a few weeks for sure.
And I think as soon as you see it, you're like, holy crap, this thing's like star-studded.
Yeah, for sure. Not the original intention.
Okay, that's interesting. Let's talk about that.
Not the original intention. So how commercials work is an advertising agency gets hired by the client. In this case, the NBA is the client, and the advertising agency is an agency that's based here called Translation. And basically, the NBA comes to Translation and says, "All right, what are your ideas for how to kind of talk about the finals this year?" And so they came up with this idea of "We're All in the Finals," which is the title, which is basically, it doesn't matter if you're like Peyton Manning, Jimmy Kimmel, down to like the middle school kid.
We're all feeling the same
Everybody's going to stop what they're doing and watch the finals, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the kind of original idea, was that it's a mixture of kind of, quote unquote regular people and famous people, but everybody's kind of at the same level.
Yeah.
And I think that just as the production went on, I think a lot of celebrities reached out. A lot of people were very interested in being in the spot, and so
that kind of changed everything.
It changed everything, and we still shot. We shot half of the time with kind of normal cast, and then half the time with some pretty famous people in increasingly crazy situations. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's super interesting how you work with these celebrities who they're normal people, but they're very busy. There's other obstacles involved when you're working with celebrities. Let's talk about that, but before we get into that, first off, what camera did you shoot this on?
2 cameras. So we used the Mini LF and 35 mil, like an RE435.
I think that's a bit of a trend right now. I don't want to say a trend, but I'm definitely seeing a lot of people who are like, we could shoot this on the Arri Mini LF, Or we could do film.
Definitely. So I think that what happened a few years ago is everybody was shooting like their textures and transitions on mini DV or on Super 8.
Yeah.
Things to just kind of like introduce some chaos into the process. And I have personally been a part of several projects that have used 35mm film as a way to introduce a specific kind of transition.
Right.
Start, stops, letting the gate run,
Yeah.
Ways to kind of give it some texture.
Do you think that's
basically.
like a nostalgia thing, or is that just a look thing that it's like cool, like we like the look right now?
I think we like the look right now. I also think if everyone had their way, we'd actually just shoot it on 35.
Yeah.
But I think it's the way to get kind of clients and agency to let us shoot some 35.
Right.
If it's not
There
the only thing we're
there
shooting.
has to be a reason
That's
for
right.
why we need to film this.
And can we at least shoot some digital so that we know we have what we need? And so what's interesting is when you look at the final spot, 3/4 of it's film, actually.
Interesting. Were you filming the celebrities also on film? Because I feel like that sounds like high pressure. Like you don't have much time, you know?
So 3 of the celebrities were on film.
Okay.
Yeah, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson was on film, and Tony Hawk was on film. In addition to, both film and digital.
Yeah.
For Jimmy Kimmel, for Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, all the travel days, we didn't take a 35mm camera with us.
Just logistically.
Just logistically too difficult, and it's all about processing. Like we were far away from processing centers, development places, houses, and so in LA, we were able to shoot the film, basically.
And what lenses were you guys using?
We were on Master Primes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you as the director, did you have any do you give the DP kind of like, hey, what are you thinking for this? This is what I'm looking for? Or do you, because you come from DP background, you kind of know like, oh, I think I want to shoot on this camera and this lens?
No, so the beauty of working with great DPs like Cambio is that we get on the phone ahead of time and he asks me a bunch of questions about how I want it to feel.
Right.
He asks, I then speak in adjectives basically, and then he goes away and goes, all right, I think I
figured it out.
I know what we want to do.
Yeah.
And I don't, that's it. I don't, the next time, sometimes I'll be like, oh, what lenses are we shooting on, by the way?
Yeah.
But other than deciding spherical or anamorphic, I'm not involved.
Yeah, you trust that he knows. I told him he knows better
sure.
than I do about
For sure.
what I need.
Exactly.
Tell me a little bit, not everything is under your control.
Yes.
You can't decide everything.
Many things are not under my control.
What do you decide? What do you think is one of the biggest things that, for example, on this project, you were kind of in control of or influencing the most?
My biggest responsibility is designing an overall approach, a kind of decision-making framework.
Right.
And so a lot of, the agency will give me the brief, the director's brief, and then all of the kind of pitching process, which I had to pitch against 2 other directors for this job.
Which is a whole nother conversation.
A whole other conversation. But my time during that is really thinking through what can I add to this process. And this particular campaign, the 2 things I kind of was very adamant about is that we need to make sure that we photograph the celebrities in a way that, I want to elevate our kind of regular cast.
Right.
I don't want to make the celebrity moments feel different than how we photograph everybody else.
So the biggest challenge here is how do you make these celebrities who we all have preconceived notions, we as soon as we see that celebrity we think things.
That's right.
And you want to kind of break those and
Yes.
think about how
Yes.
no, he's just a normal dude,
Yep.
kind of thing.
So whether that be an image or an action, one thing, what can I bring to the table? How can I create an environment in which we get some kind of genuine, authentic something with those celebrities that we haven't seen before or that feels connected or real.
Right.
So that was one. And then the other was applying a bit of a kind of visual architecture to the whole piece, because in a montage commercial, a lot of times it's like, how do you kind of make sure that it has a cohesive feeling to it?
Which I don't know how you did do that, because my brain does not work like that. It's so hard. I just want to work chronological,
No, it is. No, it is not like that at all. And so what I thought about on this one in particular is that we, what's interesting about this is that we all have kind of footage, scenes, memories of NBA finals in our heads. Right. And that the idea is that, look, this year may produce a new memory that we all carry with us in the forward, right? Yeah. And so making the connection to past archival moments to the future, like what's next.
Right.
And so they had already talked about like maybe there's footage playing on some screen in the place or whatever. But my kind of big contribution, which isn't in the final film a lot for some reasons that we can maybe talk about. But basically I proposed a massive video wall in an art gallery installation, as an art gallery installation piece. So not just diegetic footage playing on screens, but like people are here to like see this footage at scale.
Right.
And so that was kind of my big contribution to the initial planning stages of this. And then that began to cascade into the way that we approached a lot of our other kind of scenes where either footage was playing or where light was going to kind of be used throughout the course of the piece.
Right. It's funny, when you're talking there, right away I started, like, you're talking about like those previous things and like those moments that you remember, like, oh, I remember when that happened, and then you see the celebrity, like, oh, they were reliving those same, they had those same feelings and the same, like, ups and downs, highs and lows,
100%.
Same memories. Yeah, I didn't even really, like, it just all fits together. Like now it's like the artist explaining the art.
I'm like, oh, that's what they were doing.
Now that makes sense why I felt like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, let's talk about the who was the first celebrity that you worked with?
Okay, so straight out of the gate, day one, scene one, was Magic Johnson.
No pressure.
No pressure. Which arguably for everyone, and what was actually really amazing is that we shot that portion in Los Angeles, and Magic, for kind of communities in LA, like my DP grew up in South Central LA, and he told me, he was like, dude, Magic is like Obama. For like, it's Obama and Magic Johnson. Like, for my community where I grew up. And my like our crew was largely from kind of neighborhoods where Magic has been a big deal and has continued to kind of be present and contribute. And so you have agency and client who are obviously like on edge about this experience. But to add to that, most of my crew was also like, sitting up straight, like very like, come on, man, we gotta be ready. Pressure's on. And so it was just like it was definitely a tremendously high pressure moment straight out of the gate.
How do you even prepare for that then? Like, you're going to be going in this situation, and you can't be the guy who's like fanboying or just like stumbling along because you're kind of lost in the fact that there's person here,
I mean, I think for me, like the thing, when you work with celebrities as well, especially in the commercial space, you end up getting, like, a long time would be an hour. I would say more realistically, it's usually about 30 minutes.
You guys set everything up.
Everything's set. They come in. They kind of do exactly what you already planned, and then they're like, "You guys good?" And then they walk away. And so I think for me, like, it's always about letting them know what you're doing right now, how it fits with what's gonna happen, and then telling them what's gonna happen in the next few minutes. Because I feel like if there's ever a time in which they're kind of just sitting there, they start going like, wait, why am I sitting here? What is happening? I want to leave, basically. And so I think for me, that's been my kind of skill set development, is like knowing how to kind of stage manage that experience. Going like, because I can't talk to Magic the whole time.
Yeah.
My DP's
Yeah.
talking to me, my gaffer, like key grips moving this, like, so it's a lot of like, hey Magic, so Cambio's there. Hey Cambio, come meet Magic. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And I'm giving the guys like a second to, and I'll go. They're just making a couple of quick adjustments, and then we're gonna go. All right. So, do you have any questions for me? No. All right, great. So, just a reminder, you're gonna pick up the ring, and then you're gonna show him this. Cool. Like, feel good with that?
Yeah.
Good with that? All right, great. Everybody good? Everybody good? All right, we got friends watching. So what we'll do is we're gonna shoot for a minute, and then I'm watching like over my corner. My gaffer gives me the thumbs up, like we're good. And I'm like, all right, so we're gonna shoot for a bit. We got friends watching. They're gonna tell me some notes, and then I'll relay what I think is important. Okay? Everything good? And he'd be like, yeah, good. All right, great. Step over here. Let's go. So there can be no dead time. I think with a celebrity at that level.
Yeah.
So it's a little tricky, but quite fun.
I bet.
It's like riding a bull.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right, we had to change angles. Losing light, plus somebody decided to blast their cell phone right beside us. So
New York City.
that's
baby.
New York.
And now we got a helicopter.
Oh, beautiful
coming
helicopter.
over.
Let's get the helicopter sound in.
There'll be some ambience, some New York spice.
Heck yeah.
So I think one of the things about commercials is like there's an amazing kind of pressure for it to get made. Like it is going to get made. They bought airtime.
It has to get
They
made.
bought the airtime. Like it is gonna get made. And so I think it's a unique experience in the filmmaking space because a lot of, if you're working on a film, especially an independent film or a documentary project or something, it doesn't have to get made.
Yeah.
You're constantly having to generate kind of pressure to make it happen.
Right.
In a commercial, it's like it is a rushing river. You get thrown into it and hopefully you don't drown, right?
Just gotta go with the
You just
flow.
gotta go with
Make
the
it
flow.
happen.
You gotta go with the flow. And so that's
This
the
is like
that's the
I
context.
sense some conflict
That's the
coming
context.
up.
Context is, you've got talent bookers working on getting celebrities involved. We're making schedules based on anticipation of when they're going to be involved or what they're going to be doing. And for Magic, the original idea was he was going to be available. He was going to be available in the late afternoon. And the idea originally was that he was going to be in an SUV driving past this kind of street ball court, and he sees these guys playing, and one of the guys is doing his move, and it's kind of like a little wink and a nod.
Right, yeah.
Right? Late afternoon, beautiful light, street ball court.
Of course.
Gorgeous.
Perfect. It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. One of the other scenes that originally had been like an idea to do this kind of uncut gems, like diamond moment where a jeweler is either showing or working on a finals ring. They were like, maybe Adam Sandler could be in that, maybe showing the ring to Will Ferrell. Then, nope, Adam Sandler's not going to be in it. Actually, that's too on the nose. Maybe we don't do that. Okay, we're going to do this, blah, 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 blah. And we ultimately land on this really great kind of diamond shop in downtown LA. We got a guy who's going to be the jeweler, and he's going to be working on this thing. Great, we're going to shoot that, then we're going to go shoot something else, then we're going to shoot Magic at the street ball court, then we're going to do a nighttime game on the court. It's going to be awesome. Then like a couple of days before, we get a phone call, and they're like, actually Magic can't come
Surprise.
in the afternoon. He has to come, he's available at 1 o'clock, and he can give you 1 hour, like start to finish, set from the time he lands the set to when he drives away.
Definitely planned for that, right?
I was like, okay, great. 1 o'clock is when we're supposed to be at the diamond shop. I was like, can we shoot him at the diamond shop? That'd be interesting.
That works.
That'd be great. And they go back and forth, and they're like, what kind of diamond shop? I'm like, it'll be cool, don't worry about it.
It's got a vibe.
Right, it's got a vibe. So I basically write out a scene where I'm like, all right, let's imagine in the 80s, Magic wins his first ring, and he's a young guy, and like he's intimidated by the Beverly Hills jewelers, and he knows this dude downtown, and he like takes his ring to get sized to this guy downtown, but he did such a great job, and he's totally like, he doesn't make a big fuss about it. He can go there in and out, no big deal. Maybe he's still going to this guy that he met in the 80s. Magic's a guy who like sticks with people over time, right? So maybe he goes to this jeweler, and every year in the finals, he goes to get his rings tuned up because he's got a bunch of events, and he's gonna wear them out, right? And I send this off to the agency and client. I'm like, what do you think about that? Maybe we can have him be in this scene.
Yeah.
And they were like, we love it. sounds great, let's do it. I was like, okay, great, let's do it.
Perfect.
So we go to the tech
Problem
scout.
solved, right?
Problem solved. We pick a, kind of a crappy diamond shop. Looks amazing, definitely Uncut Gems vibe. We go to the diamond shop on the tech scout, which is the first day. The agency's there. Sometimes if it's a big deal, the client comes. In this case, there was a client who showed up. We walk into the space and everybody just goes, I'm not putting Magic Johnson. We can't
Not
put
happening.
Magic Johnson in this space. Like, look at this place. It's crazy.
At this point, are you like, oh, this is gonna be an easy shoot, everything goes through, or this is just normal stuff,
this
you
is
know?
normal. This is normal. It's always something for sure. It's just happening so fast. Like,
Yeah.
It's impossible for everybody to be on the same page about stuff. And two, not just that, but like maybe there's one client who's like, Magic Johnson didn't have a great time on 2 shoots ago, and he told me that he wanted to make sure that like everything's smooth on this one.
Right,
and, like,
yeah.
What happens if blah, blah, blah. So there's always information you don't know that's coloring like the kind of decision making that is kind of tumbling down on your head at any given moment.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we shoot, and I'm like, well, look, we can dress it this way. We'll shoot in this corner. Everything will be fine. They're like, okay. I think we can make it work, okay. So we leave the diamond shop on our tech scout going, all right, we'll make it work. We go to another location. At the location, the agency pulls me aside and they're like, hey man, like we've been talking, talked to client. Magic is like marquee talent for them.
Not gonna happen.
Not happening. They want him to be in like a Beverly Hills, like fancy ass diamond shop. So the problem with that is it's a Tuesday, we shoot on a Thursday. In Los Angeles at the time, it's a 4-day permitting process. So we can't go to a...
There is no other location.
We can't go to a new diamond shop. Like, it's either this or we make another location work. And so it turned into my production designer basically going in the back of the van with the art director, and they started designing 3-wall sets of like, to create a fancy diamond shop for this interaction.
Because you could not get an actual
And I was like, hey
location.
guys, also just FYI, we cast a guy who looks like would be a good fit for Uncut Gems. So we're gonna have to find somebody else to like put on a suit and be the fancy jeweler as well, just FYI.
Just
So anyway, the rock's tumbling down the hill, and I just have this feeling that I'm like, back to what we talked about at the beginning, my goal was, can we put these guys in places that you haven't seen?
Right.
Not to be fancy, but like, is there a way to like bring something that feels real in the midst of this? And do we think Magic Johnson would go to this diamond shop? I don't know, but he might.
Mm-hmm.
And if at a minimum, it's not a scene you've seen him.
Right.
You see him in perfect light as a commentator, on ads, whatever. He gets, I think as well, a lot of times with celebrities, they get handled by their team, who is, they're trying to anticipate what they may or may not like.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they just play it very conservatively.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
oh no, you won't want to do that.
Yeah.
And then you talk to the person, they're like, dude, that would be
That would
amazing.
be, why
I
didn't
would
we do
love
that?
to
Yeah, let's do that.
And so for me, I was like, man, I just feel like my gut is we gotta shoot in the diamond shop.
Yeah.
We gotta do it.
Yeah.
And so I said to them, I was like, you guys go, we're scouting USC next. You guys go to USC. I'll be there in an hour. And I took my production designer and my line producer, and I had a director's assistant. And I was like, let's go back. I take my black magic and let me just briefly art direct it, put the person in place, and I'm going to show them what I think the camera could see in this place and how it might feel. And so I went and shot a few scenes. I threw the footage on my laptop, and while I was driving to USC, I cut it together, graded it, and I just literally group texted it to the agency. And they were like, thank you, hold tight. And they came back to me 10 minutes later and they're like, client approved.
Like it. That's interesting. 2 things stick out there. One is that you fought for that. Like, that's a sign of a good director, in my opinion. Because if you don't fight for that, then like, it's not, the story doesn't fit. And the other thing, I don't know if you like, to me, it's really interesting that you're thinking of like the backstory. in a way, like you said, you wrote out this thing.
Yeah.
Like kind of like the context or the backstory
Yeah.
for why it would be like this.
Yeah.
Is that a normal thing, or is that just
It's
something
how
part of you
It's
do?
how I work. I like to work.
Okay.
I think of scenes narratively, which is like, why are we here?
Right.
And I've envisioned in commercials, you've just clipped an in and out point of a much larger event and story. And
Yeah.
so for me, the reason I do that is so that if our in and out points change, it's like, actually, what if he's doing this? Or actually, what if he's doing that?
Right.
You have there's enough of a world that you can go, oh, okay, actually,
Fits
we'll take
this
it from
world
a different,
or doesn't fit
we'll take it
this-
from a different angle,
Yeah.
right? Not just physically shooting, but like narratively, it gives you more room to maneuver.
Yeah.
And I feel like for me personally in commercials, I feel like success has been being able to stay flexible while also having strong opinions. And so for me, I like to create bigger canvases than we're ever going to use. That way
Right.
I can be firm in my decision making, but I still have the flexibility to shift it around a bit.
Right.
And backstory is how I do that
Yeah.
a lot of times.
Do you think that's normal, or is that just
I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not sure.
Because I've heard that with feature films, they'll write more backstory, and
For
that
sure.
makes sense. You're creating
For
a
sure.
whole world.
For sure.
But like to do that for commercials
I
seems
think
like,
agencies, when I'll put it in treatments too. I'll be like,
Mm.
here's how we got to these scenes, whatever. And I think sometimes they're like, yeah, cool, but like 9 frames. That's how long this shot's gonna be on the screen, And I'm like, look, I know. Let me get there. Let me get there, man. Let me get there.
Humor me.
So, but I was actually in the middle of listening to Rick Rubin's book
Yeah, great
while
book.
I was in prep on this, and he literally has a whole chapter that's do not do not persuade, show.
Right.
And I literally was like, all right, I feel like that's actually really relevant to this process. In the commercial
Right.
process, there's a lot of talking about what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, I feel like my role as a director in a commercial context is almost exclusively to plant a flag in the ground.
Right.
To let people then react off of it.
Yeah.
And go, I don't like that.
Yeah.
But there is that kind of like, you have to start having firm things that you can make decisions around.
Somebody has to do that.
Somebody's got to commit.
And then everybody, because if there isn't that, then like everybody's kind of like, I don't know. But if you say this, then you have like everybody else has to now say like, we like that or we don't like
For
that.
sure.
Let's go that direction.
Yeah.
Nope. Let's have. No.
And for me, it's been about realizing that like equipping my agency partners to, in that scenario, I'm going to give you something that you can take to the client to show them concretely.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to do.
Yeah,
and if
yeah.
they don't like that,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah,
You're not in the right
yeah,
place.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's okay. And that's okay. But like, what I don't want to do, and I told them this, I was like, what we don't want to do is get on set with Magic Johnson. We put the camera up, and everybody looks at the monitor and goes, nope.
Nope.
Because it is too late.
Yeah.
What we want to do is go put the camera up, and everybody goes, this looks amazing.
Yeah.
And like, we're so happy to be here.
It's
and so
exactly
excited.
like you showed us.
And
now we're just,
It was.
Yeah.
It was, for sure. Magic ended up being like a really, I think because of showing how we were going to do it, it looked exactly like I kind of showed them how it was, so everyone was super relaxed on the day.
Yeah.
Magic was like, literally the first words out of his mouth, he was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
Like,
That's promising right
which
away.
was great.
Yeah.
It was great. And he was lovely, and like he was super pro. It was literally down to the minute when we had, he was like, all right, I'll give you guys till whatever, 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. And it was literally like 1:59. He was like, to his assistant, he was like, what time is it? And she was like, it's 1:59. He was like, you guys gonna get what you need?
Yeah.
You got a minute left, And he was like, he was joking around, but sure enough,
But he's
dude,
serious.
it was done. 2 o'clock hit, and
Peace
he
out.
was like, all right, I think you got it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I do.
Yeah,
I think I do,
I
Magic.
hope I do.
And then, so what was amazing is then he like immediately was like, all right, you all LA boys? Like he was talking to the crew or whatever. They were like, yes, sir. And he was like, "Come on, let's get a picture." And
Oh,
then he
that's
stood
cool.
there
I
for
like
like
that.
45 minutes.
That's great.
And
Yeah.
took pictures with every crew member who wanted to take a picture with him.
Yeah.
And it was really amazing because a couple weeks later, Cambia told me that he was still getting texts from the crew going like, "Dude, I showed the picture to my grandmother, and
Yeah.
she's like, whoa, my grandson must be great at what he does if he's taking
That's
pictures with
so
Magic
cool.
Johnson." You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
it was
He's
pretty.
hanging out with Magic
Exactly.
Johnson.
It was awesome. It was really great. It was a
That's
great
so good.
reminder of like, you know, I think especially to just see like what a celebrity like when it all works, when
Yeah.
they've made this amazing contribution. And
Yeah.
it's special. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, and such a little thing like, hey, let's take a picture can
Totally.
be like a massively meaningful
super
thing.
meaningful.
Yeah.
So anyway, so if you shoot Magic, you got to shoot Larry.
Yep.
Right. And so they had actually asked me on set. They just handed me a page of lines. They were like, "Can you get Magic to kind of like give Larry some crap on camera?"
Oh, really?
And I was like, "Oh man, you want me to ask that?" And I did. And Magic, of course, was like, "Come on, what do you want me to say about Larry?" You know, which is pretty amazing. So he said the lines. It's all in good fun. You know, like
Yeah,
they do
yeah,
this,
yeah, of course.
You know,
Yeah.
they do this professionally. They know how the bills get paid. So anyway, so he says some stuff, whatever. It's pretty great actually.
Yeah.
And I think specifically he was talking about how the Lakers kept the Celtics from winning 4 in a row. I think they broke the pattern, and he was talking specifically about like 85 or something.
Yeah.
So anyway, the editor cuts it together and then sends it to me because we get a phone call saying Larry's going to do the spot,
Right.
but Larry's not coming to you. You're going to Larry.
You gotta go to Larry.
So we had to fly to Florida and get set up in this house to shoot as if he was in his office,
Right.
you know, working in his office or whatever, and then we had him polishing his rings. So Magic's getting his rings tuned up at the jewelry shop. Larry's in his office getting his rings tuned up, and so Larry famously is a bit prickly about being on camera. He's not a big fan of being on camera.
Right.
And I was told by everybody, like, dude, you just, you know,
Just
be
so you
prepared.
know.
Be prepared.
Yeah.
Like, Larry's not going to be your best friend at the end of this. You know, I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah.
And so they bring me back in. We're all set. Cambio and I went down. We get everything set. It's a challenging location because it's like, you know, I think I picked it off my phone. You know, that my production designer in Florida sends me a link of
Right.
houses, and I'm like, I guess
think
this
one, yeah.
and then we get there, and I'm like, maybe not. Should have been this one.
Maybe
you know?
not.
But it doesn't. You know, it's too
Too
late.
late now.
It's too late.
Gotta make it work.
And so anyway, they take me back to meet Larry, and Larry, you know, he's sitting in the chair. He's getting touched up, and I was like, "Hey, I'm Ryan. It's great to meet you. Thanks for coming out, doing this. Here's what we're gonna do. You know, we're gonna shoot this, and we're gonna shoot that. That's gonna happen. I'm gonna ask you to do this. If you feel comfortable, maybe we'll do a few lines. We'll do this. Blah 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 blah, and then we'll get you out of here. Like, any questions for me?" And he goes, "Nope. Just looking forward to leaving." And I, without
Me
thinking,
too, but
literally without thinking, I go, "Me too, Larry." And I turn around and walk away, and I hear him laughing over my shoulder, and I was like, "Whew."
You think that won you some points?
100%. 100%. I literally was like, all right, I'm storing that for later.
That's good.
So anyway, so we shoot with Larry. He's great. He does a great job. And I have him kind of messing with his rings. And I'm like, it'd be great. They asked, the agency's like, all right, it's not going to happen, but could you get him to smile? Which is a classic commercial thing, right? Somebody smiling.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
they're happy.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know, guys. Like, it's like asking the Grinch to, like, you know what I mean? Like, and so I was like, all right, let me try. And so we're shooting, and I told Cambio, I was like, don't cut, just keep rolling.
Just keep rolling. Yeah. Do
rolling,
not
you know?
miss this. If
In,
I
out,
get it.
moving around. And so I was like, all right, you know, polish those rings. He's working on the rings, and I was like, which one do you like the most? Like, which one's most meaningful to you? And he was like, oh, 85. And I was like, is that because you made Magic? He was like, is that because you made Magic cry? And he's polishing, and he goes, oh yeah. He was like, I know Magic's lost some sleep looking at this one. And he holds him up like this and smiles at the camera. And then almost immediately, like,
Yeah.
drops.
Oh shoot!
Like, he's like, and it puts it down. And
I should
keeps
have
going.
smiled.
That is the final image
Yeah,
of
that's
the
the
commercial.
shot,
Of
yeah.
him just like, you know,
Yeah.
because he literally like, it looks like the Grinch. It's amazing. It's like it's not a plastic smile.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, I beat your ass.
Yeah.
Like, I know I don't know what's going on in his brain, but like, it's a
Yeah,
meaningful, there's something going on there.
And those are those moments where you're instantly like, that was it.
Well,
Got
no,
it.
It happened, and I literally was like, you know, I look back to agency, and they're all like, you know, we did it. And apparently, I don't know. This is an unconfirmed story, but apparently, Adam Silver, the head of the NBA, apparently reached out to the agency to be like, I have never seen Larry smile in my entire career.
Congratulations on making
like,
Larry
nice
smile.
work. I don't know what you guys did, but like, nice work. So anyway, so
That's
that was
incredible.
and we had him on set like 25 minutes total, you know. So it was definitely like super high pressure. You know, it's a 5-hour setup. He's on set for, you know, including touch-ups, maybe 35 minutes. He also had to do some like socials, some photos,
Right.
you know, whatever. So it's always not just your
Yeah.
time. It's not my time. If he's
Yeah.
on set for an hour, it's not just my
There's a
time.
bunch of
There's a
other
lot
stuff.
of other people
Yeah,
that
yeah.
need stuff from him. And so the pressure of those scenarios are always like pretty intense.
Did you come into knowing that, you know, okay, this one might be a little tough? Did you come in with a game plan, or do you have a skill set that like you come more from like kind of like doc style,
Yeah.
you know, run and gun, and so is that part of how you're able to like work with this scenario with the river flowing that you know
Yeah.
you're just like, all right, I got this, I'll figure it out.
I
you
think
know?
for me, like directing, commercial directing, and working with celebrities in particular, has taught me a lot about what directing is building frameworks and building a box, and then allowing the pinball to bounce within that box.
Right.
That if you can create the box, then give yourself the freedom to like
Yeah.
let it happen, man. Like, I didn't go, you know what would be great is if we get a shot of Larry Bird going like this.
Yeah, smiling to
Right?
the camera.
Didn't cross my mind walking into it. We didn't have storyboards going into it. It was literally
Right.
like, we need a moment of him with the rings that we can intercut with Magic. We need him talking a little crap to Magic so that they can make a ping pong 15-second separate piece for social.
Right.
We need this, we need that. Okay, great. But I think for me, it's talking to the operator, talking to my DP, talking to my production designer, like setting the container and going like, all right, here's what we're working with, and within that, Cambio, I'm coming in close to Larry. I'm not looking at the frame. You do your thing. I need to get a real moment on camera here, and like, don't mess it up. And it's up to and then giving Cambio the space to go like, okay, I'm gonna start back here.
Yeah.
As I see his head start to look up, like he starts to lean forward.
Right.
You know, it's like,
Yeah.
whereas you probably could have scripted that moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's everybody kind of dancing a bit in the moment, I
Yeah.
think, and like reacting and equipping everybody to react appropriately.
Right.
And you do that every scene, like over and over again throughout the course of an 8-day, which was a 3-week production.
Yeah.
Like, and it accumulates into something.
So you're not so much coming in with like, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, this is happening. That's not your prep, your planning. Your planning is, I think this is the box we want to play in.
Yes, and anchor moments. Like I said at the beginning, is there an image we haven't seen? Is there a moment we haven't seen?
Right.
Like, and how can we engineer the moment? How can we engineer the possibility of those things happening?
Yeah.
You know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, what was the most high pressure of all these?
Well, I don't know if it's the most high pressure, but the most, I think the most unusually pressured moment was after we wrapped all the celebrities. Throughout the course of production, we kept hearing that Jimmy Kimmel may be involved because he's like, you know, it's airing on ABC. They'd love to do a tie-in. He's also a huge like NBA fan.
Right.
Makes sense. Okay, great. And they kept saying like, oh yeah, they may like add it to one of the days where we're shooting, or maybe they'll do an extra day. We do Jimmy.
Yeah.
We make it through all the production. It never comes
No
together.
Jimmy.
No Jimmy. Okay, no problem. We leave LA and now go on our road trip. We shoot Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Larry Bird all over the country. I come home, and then I get a phone call, and they're like, okay, so good news, bad news.
Gotta love that.
Yes. Jimmy's in.
Okay.
It's going to be great. It's going to be next week. But Jimmy's team you have to use his team. Like the show DPs, like they have a whole film unit basically that goes out and does the stand-ups and everything. You have to use them. You have to use their equipment. You have to basically slot in a working show and do it all.
So he's doing a live show, and you have to work.
You have to work around their schedule, basically. And the idea was that he would be backstage, and he's going over his notes for the opening monologue, and the finals is on the TV.
Yeah.
I'm pointing behind me because we ended up putting the TV. He's looking in the mirror at the TV.
Yeah.
I was like, that's the scene, and so we scouted they had scouted for us. Here's where we think it could happen. Here's his dressing room. Here's another dressing room that we think we could use. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So they say, okay, this is possible. Can you work within our parameters, basically? Agency. We get on the phone. We also shot the dude from BTS remotely at 3 a.m. because he was in South Korea.
Right.
And so we'd already kind of the being flexible in how we capture them had already started.
Right.
So then it was like, Jimmy, can you do it? And they called me and they're like, do you feel like you could do that? I was like, and they were like, here's the other thing, is they don't want anyone else to come. They just want you and 2 of the agency people and 2 clients. That's it. That's it. So just 5 of us can come on set. I couldn't have a producer, nobody. And also they're fully in the edit.
Right.
The post-production is happening. So people are gonna try and come, but whatever. So I was like, okay, great. Get on a plane, come back out to LA.
Let's go.
Go to the Scout. I get to the Scout, and the agency producer's flight got delayed, and no one else was coming to the Scout. It was just agency producer. So I'm sitting down backstage at Jimmy Kimmel, sitting there, and they were like, hey, are you, this person comes by and they're like, are you with the NBA? And I was like, yes, I'm directing the commercial. I'm not with the NBA, but I'm working for the NBA. And they're like, okay, where's, the producer or whatever?
Yeah.
I was like, they're coming, but they're a little delayed, so if we want to just wait until they get here. And they were like, no,
can't wait.
We got 15 minutes. What do you want to do? And I was like, okay, all right. So, the scene is backstage, blah, 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 blah. This would be amazing. And they were like, okay, you can shoot it here, or you can shoot it here. And I was like, this one looks great, And they're like, okay, great. Now, how are we going to do that? Okay, great. Camera's going to go here. We need 2 operators. We need to do this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. We start to get it set up, and they're like, all right, anything else? Do you need him to do anything else? And I was like, well, so if I might be so bold, there was conversation at one point as kind of a joke or for socials that Jimmy, we have the Larry O'Brien trophy, the actual trophy, that Jimmy just is cradling the trophy, walking around backstage, and they start dying laughing. They're like, dude, he would love to do that. That would be great. And I was like, okay, great. So,
cool, perfect.
So can we find a place to walk? I was like, the long runway, backstage is really cool. I mean, in an ideal world, he'd walk up the stairs and onto set,
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, okay. Yeah, we could probably do that. They were like, well, would you want to just shoot it on set? And I was like, is it possible? And they were like, maybe, so we walk onto set, and I was like, all right, well, originally, one of the earliest ideas I saw was that Jimmy was going to be in the middle of interviewing a guest, and we cut to a TV under his desk, and it's that he's ignoring the guest, and he's watching the finals under the desk during the taping, and his executive producer starts dying laughing, and she is like, he used to do that, back in the early days, because we were less efficient back then.
Yeah,
and, he literally would watch the finals under the desk, and I was like, all right, well, that'd be cool. Like,
Perfect.
is that possible? And they're like, well, the only problem is that you couldn't direct it. Like, our show guys would have to direct it because it's a different wing of the DGA, and you can't. And I was like, actually, I just directed like this big Apple Music Live. Like, I'm in the variety wing of the DGA. And they were like, oh, really? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, well, yeah, you can do it.
Perfect.
Like,
then.
you can do it. And I was like, okay, is this possible? And they're like, who's the guest on the day that we're supposed to shoot? And they're like, well, it's Pierce Brosnan. So you'd have to get his permission.
Now
but
you
as
need
long as
his?
you get his permission, then it's fine. You know?
Yeah.
And so they're like, we're gonna take it to Jimmy. We'll let you know. They come back to us and they're like, Jimmy loves it. Like, we can do it if you guys want to try it.
Let's
I
go.
go to the agency and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna kick some shit up. If you're cool with it, I feel like they're gonna let us do this, you know? And so we come back the next day for the show. Or no, we have one down day. They get in touch with Pierce's people. They just are like, here's how much money we'll pay you to sit in a chair and
Just be in the
there.
background.
You know, you're already gonna be there.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, great. And so all of a sudden everything's like together and it's happening. So the plan is, they come to me and they say, all right, Jimmy's gonna give you an hour, like start to finish. So, they worked out that the set, the Jimmy Kimmel Live TV set, is a trademarked entity.
Right.
And so it cannot play on any non-ABC network because of licensing deals.
Right.
So by doing this, there will automatically be multiple versions of this commercial. And the Jimmy Kimmel people were like, just so you know,
Just so you know.
he's not going to give you an hour for both. He's going to give you, to do one and then another hour to do another. If you want to do 2 locations, it's an hour for both. And I was like, okay, like, had to get on, talk with their team and figure out if that was possible, because I'm also not working with my own camera operators or whatever.
Yeah.
And they were like, man, Jimmy's like a one-take guy, it'll be fine.
Easy.
I'm like, all right. So agency's like, let's roll the dice, let's try it. And they talk to Pierce's people, and Pierce agrees, okay, we're doing it. So we get there the day of the shoot, and I had gone to the edit with the agency in the morning. We come over for the afternoon taping. We get there at like 1:30 or 2 in the afternoon. Everybody's kind of running around. And agency gets stuck in traffic, and they don't make it until almost 5, which is fine. Taping doesn't happen until 7. We're all good. Except from 2 to 5, basically, Pierce's management comes to the show people, and they're like, we got to talk to somebody.
Oh, no.
And they were like, you talk to him? He's the only person here from the, whatever.
Pointing at you?
Pointing at me. And I was like, me? And the manager came over, and this is like high-powered, like Hollywood.
Yeah.
She was like, Pierce is concerned. And I was like, okay. How can I help? And she was like, Pierce is, and frankly, I am concerned as well, because we want to make sure that, like, he's not the butt of the joke. And I was like, okay, in what way? And they're like, well, that his interview would be so boring that Jimmy would be ignoring the interview to be watching the TV. And I was like, fair enough.
Fair point.
I was like, how about this? I was like, I think what we could do is, you guys are talking, like Pierce is talking to Jimmy, they're having the normal interview, and then Jimmy looks to the TV and then basically says, Pierce, hold on, dude, you have to check this out, right? So he invites him to watch, and now Pierce is leaning over, everybody's part of it, right?
Yeah.
She goes, that could work. She was like, you got to sell it to Pierce, though. And I was like, okay. So she walks me back to Pierce's dressing room, and he's sitting there, and like, I have to pitch him on what we're gonna do. There is no one around. There is nobody here. It is me fighting for my life for this scene for a commercial that I didn't write.
How did you get into this situation?
I don't know. I have no idea. And I feel like, and like, he literally was like, sounds awesome, I love it, let's do it. you know?
That's that box thing, like the frame
box.
unit. Like, okay, we had this idea, but like,
That doesn't work.
Yeah, okay,
You have to shift.
let's stay in the box still. How do we
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
this is actually still same box, same framework,
box, same idea,
Yeah, like-
different intention,
Yeah.
and now everybody's happy.
Yeah.
And so I feel like for me, this commercial has been so exciting because, you know, I got to direct Tony Hawk with 400 extras as a courtside, you know, basketball seat with,
Yeah.
you know, techno and all the gear.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got to work with Jimmy's field unit on a, like a, what was it? Not even, like an FX7,
Mhm.
right? With a field unit and Pierce Brosnan and myself, like no one, just
Yeah.
like a tiny,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
literally, you and I would be 90% of who was there when I shot that.
Yeah.
And they cut right next to each other.
That's the most impressive
Yeah.
part, that it all feels, even though some spots are really highly produced and some are, it still feels like you just kind of picked up a
Yeah.
camera and you're filming.
For sure. But I will say so how you have to shoot in a scenario like that, the most stressful 15 minutes of my whole life was, you know, we're sitting there, basically I came out during the band, when the band plays, which is, you know, before the show, they record the band.
Right.
And they were like, all right, when the band finishes, you go on set, you talk with the stage manager and say what you want to do, and then he'll make the plan. He's your AD, basically.
Right.
So I go out and I'm like, all right, I want to shoot 2 overs here, and then we're going to reset and shoot 2 like French overs, and then I want a wide from the front, and then we're done. He was like, all right, 5 setups. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, you going to be able to move that fast? And I was like, watch me. It'll be fine, you know? And I could tell the crew is kind of like, I don't know, man. We've never asked Jimmy to do more than 1 take of anything, you know?
Yeah.
And so we map out our plan. Again, I film it all on Blackmagic. I cut it together and say, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
They sat there and they were like, all right, you got 5 minutes to adjust the lighting. What do you want? And I was like, dude, kill everything from behind. I want it only coming this way. When we go this side, like, kill it from the front. I want it only coming from behind, you know? And like, they programmed the lights for me, saved it as a cue. Okay, great. And then I go wait for the show to end. And basically, they're going to hold the audience in place. And then we come out.
You're going to come shoot.
Pierce comes back out, and we get 15 minutes to shoot them on stage. That's the longest they were willing to let the audience be in there. Pierce wants to be there for 5 minutes max, you know. But yeah, the show ends, and I was like, look, I've got to talk to Jimmy. I haven't met Jimmy yet, and I'm like, when do I get to talk to Jimmy? They're like, show ends, he comes off to his dressing room. You come in, walk him through what's happening, you know. Because it's like, I was like, I can't tell him what to say to Pierce.
Yeah.
He has to do what he normally does.
Right.
And so I don't, if there's any issue with that, I don't want to figure that out live in front of 500 people, a live studio audience. And so they're like, no problem, totally, it's gonna be fine. So he show's wrapping up. Okay, great. He goes out to the front and he's thanking the audience. Hey, we're doing something a little special. We have this thing. Everybody's saying, hey, hang tight, it's gonna be great. And then he starts doing crowd work. Hey, sir, where are you from? Whatever, talking, whatever. And everyone's starting to roll the gear out, you know, like agency comes out with the client.
Yeah.
Everyone's cameras are going in place, getting set for the first shot, the lights change or whatever. Jimmy's out front doing crowd work, and I go to the field producer, I'm like, hey, like,
we got to shoot.
when am we talking to Jimmy? Like, when am I talking to Jimmy?
All right.
She was like, no, it's fine. He's still going to come
Yeah,
off. It's fine.
don't
I was
worry.
like, okay, great. He does crowd work, another 5 minutes, and I'm like, I don't think he's coming off. And then she was like, yeah, I don't think he's coming off either.
Yeah.
And I was like, when am I going to talk to him? She was like, at the desk? I was like, oh my God. But the
Director's dream.
Yeah. So then Jimmy turns around to the field producer's like, you guys good? And she was like, mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like,
fine.
And then she was like, go talk to him. And I was like, so I walk up to him in front of everyone. I'm now standing in front of 500 studio audience. And I'm like, hey, Jimmy, it's great to meet you. And he was like, all right, what are we doing? I have from there to the desk to explain what's happening.
Yeah.
And there's a picture of this, of me like walking with him back to the desk. And I'm like, this is what we're doing. I'd love for you guys to do the bit. And he's like, okay, I see it. Yeah, okay, all right, let's try one. You know? I was like, okay, great. So we sit down and we do one, and it's a little clunky. You know, we do another one, it tightens up a little bit. Okay, oh, that was interesting when you did that. Okay, great, let's find this. And I'm doing this, I should say the whole set is hot mic'd. So everything I'm saying is going over
Everybody
the speakers
can
to everyone.
Not just
Here, right?
no intimate conversation
No.
about it.
And I'm like, all right, I was like, all right, let's try one more. And over the voice of God mic, who's like controlling talking to the audience, he goes, that's director speak for, I don't know what I'm doing yet. And he starts roasting me.
That's helpful.
He starts roasting me in between takes. I'm like, all right, perfect, we got it, just one more. He's like, they never mean just one more. Whole crowd starts laughing, whatever. And I had to direct in front of, like, basically while getting roasted by comedians, with Jimmy, who like literally was like, who are you? And Pierce going like, I would like to leave now. And it turned out great. They were amazing. They were all incredible. Like it was literally, I walked off that set, and we did all 5 setups. Like I moved the camera 3 times in 15 minutes. And
you got him to do the many takes.
He did like 8 takes, which the field team later told me, they were like, that's literally 8 more takes than we've ever seen him do, or 7 more takes than we've ever seen him do.
Yeah.
And he was great. He was really amazing. It was a really incredible experience. Very empowering to like know that you can like that I could work in like really high pressure environment and it still feel like loose and fun.
And still getting what you needed.
And we got what we needed.
It wasn't like, oh, that we're gonna have to somehow salvage that,
Mm-mm.
Yeah, but I think that's where like your experience. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's where your experience and that's where your like the talent and the things that you've done and like the director's mind that you've developed. Then you're thrown into that and like, if I had to do that, I'd be like, I gotta go, guys. I get it. I'm good.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna go make YouTube videos, guys.
I mean, look, I think it's like, for sure. But I do think it's frog boiling in water. Like you don't do that straight out of the straight out of the gate.
Because I don't have all of those.
For sure.
Those things that you've done,
For sure.
I wouldn't have that same experience. I don't think. No, I don't think it would go with us.
But I mean, to be honest, there was so many ways that could have gone very poorly.
Yeah.
And thankfully, and I got to talk to the executive producer of the show and all the people. During my off time, I went to the EP of the show. I went to the network president, all the people who were there for his normal show, and just said, "Hey, it's nice to meet you. I'm Ryan, working with the NBA on this thing. We're super excited to be here. It's really cool to be here."
Yeah.
And I asked, they showed me around, they showed me control room, how it all works. I literally was asking them questions about like how it happens. And I feel like that kind of like being open to those experiences. Because I do think my favorite thing about filmmaking is, if we shot this on a Wednesday, on Sunday, I was in New York thinking we were done. I didn't know this was going to happen. And I think one of the most exciting things about filmmaking is you literally just never know where you might end up and who you might be with and what you might get to be a part of or see happen that you would have no clue exists. And I think trying to stay thankful, open, and curious in the midst of that serves everybody can feel that energy. And like I think that's a huge part of why we were successful in that environment, is because not just me, but the agency and the client were also like, man, whatever we get is a bonus. Like we're so happy to be here. It wasn't like, oh man, could he do it this way instead? It was like, dude, whatever we get, like, can you believe this? We're backstage at Jimmy Kimmel. This is incredible. Pierce Brosnan, you know what I mean? Like it was amazing. It was amazing. And I think keeping that perspective is like really helpful.
Yeah, dude. Well, congrats on that. That was an insane commercial, and fun. I want to see a feature.
I mean, look.
Look.
I agree. Every time I write this backstory stuff and into these like long commercials, I feel the agencies are like, you should probably just go make a movie, huh? Like, I know.
It's probably time.
All
right, that's the next challenge.
All right,
we're gonna show the people you making a feature film.
That's right. I love it.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I think everybody's gonna love this one.
Awesome. Thanks so much.